Hey guys, how you doing? Tekking101 here, and in today's video, as I'm sure you probably already know from the title, we are finally, I know, right Barry? Finally, gonna be addressing something that's been around for like 3 years. This'll be Bleach! CFYOW, Can't Fear Your Own World, featuring Shuhei Hisagi, the one and only assistant captain of the 9th Division, other than Mashiro Kuna, rocking the blue turquoise hair, which I don't think he always had that, but whatever, it doesn't matter. He's the main character in this, which is great, because Shuhei's always been like a really cool character, and you can always tell that Kubo, even in the manga, really wanted to do more stuff with him, but never got the opportunity to. Remember that last scene he had in the epilogue, in the last chapter, one of the last chapters of Bleach, where they were like, man, you didn't even get a chance to use your Bankai, and I'm like, but I wanted to, I just didn't get the opportunity. So, he's basically like an undercover detective in this, like a journalist. He's on the case, riding around his motorcycle, which actually, there's a really cool illustration by Kubo here I wanted to show you if I can find. Oh, there it is. This is one of my favorite illustrations. This is Ginjo and Tsukushima just chilling out in the Rukongai at Kukaku's place, and they run into Shuhei's motorcycle there. Because remember, he brought one into the... It was mentioned in the Fullbringer arc by Renji that Shuhei just brought a freaking motorcycle into the Soul Society and was like revving it up and down the Seirei, and Yamamoto got really pissed at that, but I'm glad he was able to keep the motorcycle, right? Yamamoto dies, and he's like, well, that sucks, but I'm just gonna bring out my motorcycle now. No one's gonna complain about it, right? It's pretty cool, right? Come on, guys, it's cool. Okay. I think most Bleach fans worth their salt kind of know at this point what this is, okay? Bleach light novel written by Ryogo Narita, the same dude that wrote The Spirits Are Forever With You back in 2012, so he's no stranger to Bleach light novels. This was released in Japan in August of 2017, so that was roughly 1 year after the Bleach manga had ended, and it picks up right where it left off. The prologue picks up like an hour right after Ichigo slays Yuha, and then the actual story takes place like a year and a half, so there's a time skip, right? Focusing on Shuhei mainly. Ichigo might appear at some point, but I'm already halfway through this first part, and Ichigo hasn't appeared a single time, so if he does show up, it's probably just going to be on the back burner, okay? He's already done his job. He's already slayed God. He could take a break for a couple of weeks or months or years. You know what I'm saying? All right. So, yeah, there are 3 parts of this book. This is the first one that just got released by Viz here in the States in English this month. I think the next one is coming out in November of this year, and I don't think the release date for the third one is out yet, but it's probably going to come out next year in 2021 or something. This has been out for a while, okay? Every time I do a video talking about the end of Bleach or possible plot holes or just things that were left ambiguous, like, it still hurts that, like, at the end of Bleach, even in the epilogue of Bleach, like the 10 years later, we never found out what happened to Urahara or Yoruichi or Nell or Grimmjow or anybody. This book is the answer, and every time I do a video about that, I always get told, hey, Tekking, you just gotta read the Can't Fear Your Own World light novel. That explains everything what happened after the war. And up until this point, all I had to go on was, like, the summaries that I could find on the wiki or on the Reddit or random places around on the internet, and that got me to, like, the bare minimum where I needed to be. Like, I did that video on Shinji's Bankai. I read the summary, because, spoiler alert, we find out what Shinji's Bankai here is in the light novel series. Not in this first part, but later on. Also, Shuhei's Bankai, we find out about this. This has been well known for a while that we find them out in this series here. But, you know, summaries can only get you so far. Actually having the book in front of me and being able to read it in my native language, that helps. Because I can't read Japanese that well. And I think right now, English and Japanese are the only languages this is in. So, if you read either of those 2 languages and you want to check it out and you haven't already, I would definitely recommend it. Even though I'm only halfway through this one, really good read so far, and I can't wait to finish this, and then, you know, when the next part comes out in November, I'm going to pick that up here. This is not going to be a in-depth review, like me breaking down every little detail we find in this book. This is pretty much just going to be my first impressions, the stuff I liked about it, and just talking about Bleach again. Because I know a lot of people have been waiting for me to get my hands on this and talk about it and stuff, because I talked about Bleach for so damn long on this channel. But really enjoyed it, and yeah, it does really help give you closure on a lot of things in this story. Even only reading halfway through it so far, it's like, oh, that's kind of cathartic that I know what happens with this character now, right? Okay. So, yeah, let's just dive right into it, Barry. Let's just do it. This will be Bleach, Can't Fear Your Own World. Before we even get into the prologue, I wanted to bring up this. So these are two excerpts from the Shinigami like Reijutsu Academy. They're like the handbooks that are given like whenever you become a Shinigami. I guess there's an orientation and you give it a student handbook. Like, oh, here's the dogma of what it means to be a Shinigami, to be a Soul Reaper in the Court Guard squads, right? So they're like fictional quotes, but I really like these because I think they fit with the Bleach story really well. This one is taken from an older edition of the Shinigami handbook, like probably back during like Yamamoto's day when, he founded the Reijutsu Academy. And then this one over here is taken from a more modern edition. So just keep that in mind. One's like an older one and one's more of an updated one. All right, so let me read you the older one first. Seek not aesthetic in war. Seek not virtue in death. Think not of thine own life. Should thee seek to protect thy king and the 5 dukes, slay all foe as indifferently as shadows of leaves. Okay, and that was the older edition. A little bit of a more old-timey speech there, but here's the modern edition. Don't seek aesthetics in battle. Don't seek virtue in death. Don't believe your life only belongs to yourself. If you really want to protect something, attack the enemy from behind. I'm going to repeat that last line. If you really want to protect something, attack the enemy from behind. That's a really important quote. It gets brought up when Shunsui is fighting Stark at Fake Karakura. And, he kind of, what does he do? He attacks Stark from behind, like, Kagayone, shing! And then after the end of the fight, Love and Rose kind of go up to Shunsui, and Stark is dead. And Love kind of says to Shunsui, he's like, man, you're kind of, kind of squirming in on other people's battles. That's not really, honorable or whatever. We were fighting him and you just kind of came out of nowhere and stabbed him in the back. I mean, what the hell is that? And Shunsui, he had that line of just like, don't you understand? Like, this is a war, dude. Like, I'm going to do everything in my power to win. And if you start talking about like, oh, what we did was good and honorable, what you did was evil and unjust or whatever. Like, guys, don't you get it? Like, I'm going to try to paraphrase this quote as close as I can. When you go to war, both sides are evil. Like, both sides are not good at that point, right? Something like that. So, kind of butchered those lines there. But my point is, as a Shinigami, you are not some kind of, like, honorable, like, chivalrous knight or something like that, where you have a strict code of conduct and you must abide by it at all times. When you are a Shinigami, your duty is to protect the Soul King and the 5 dukes, as is specified in the older edition, not so much in the newer edition. The 5 dukes are the leaders of the 5 noble houses. Now, the 4 noble houses, because the Shiba clan is no longer part of one. And we find out the name of the Tsunayashiro house, which is another house that we didn't know about up until this point. And this is going to be a big focus on this in this light novel, one of the noble house leaders. So we're going to get into that in a second. But yeah, I like that line, because yeah, they're not chivalrous knights. Their duty is to protect the Soul King and the leaders and the aristocracy of the Soul Society, okay? So basically it's talking like, hey, fight dirty if you have to. If Hollows invade or Arrancards or Aizen or whatever, they don't care what you have to do, just win. All right? And, you are basically, when you become a Shinigami, you are a pawn, kind of, to be used by the upper echelons, to be fought and just moved around as they see fit. That's what it truly means to be a Shinigami. Because a lot of times in the story, you'll have moments like that moment between Love and Shunsui, where certain Shinigami might find it like, oh, hey, you stole my win, or hey, that wasn't very honorable, or something like that. And it's like, hey, guys, listen, we're not all about that. Like in One Piece, Zoro has the strict code of honor, like Zoro would never stab someone in the back in One Piece, because that's just against his, like, the way of the sword and his honor and all that crap, right? In Bleach, it's not like that at all. It's like, hey, no, you're here to defend the balance of life and death and shit. You do whatever you gotta do to win, all right? So I just wanted to bring up those quotes because I like those. All right, so moving on to the first prologue here. This is the one I think a lot of people if you just want to pick this up and just read the first prologue, this will probably bring you up to speed on a lot of stuff, because this takes place right after Ichigo wins. So Ichigo, Uryu does the Soul Silver era, arrow, boom! No! Ichigo, cut him down! Shing! And Yuha's like, Ichigo, you fool! Everything was gonna be the same, but now it's the same, blah, 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 blah. And then Yuha just fades away, or does he? Okay, so this picks up pretty much right after that. We're at the Soul Palace. Ichibei Hyosubi is there. He was resurrected by Ichigo, and Shunsui also arrives to kind of get an assessment of what's going on up in the freaking Soul Palace, right? So he meets Ichibei Hyosubi, and they kind of have a back and forth. They're acquainted with each other, obviously. The Zero Squad did actually die, so that's something important to mention. When we see the Zero Squad all laid out after Yuha does the Swollen, the Holy Selection, and he powers up the Elite Guard, you know, like Lilia Barrow and Harold Valkyrie and everybody. Yeah, they straight up capped off the freaking Zero Squad. They're all dead. However, death or being alive isn't really a thing for the Zero Squad because they all have the Okins inside of them, and you know they can kind of resurrect them whenever, as long as like Ichibei is alive to kind of call their names. As long it's sort of talked like the Zero Squad and the Soul Palace and the Soul King and everybody that resides there are kind of all connected through the Reo, through the Okin and through the Soul King himself. So the Zero Squad dying is less of a big deal than it sounds. Only if, like, everything was wiped out. Like, if the Soul Society, if the Soul Palace was completely annihilated, along with the Reo, along with all the members of the Zero Squad, that would have been an issue. But the way that Ichibei describes it, he's just like, as long as, like, some of us still survive, like, I'm still alive, I can call their names and bring them back. And he actually does that. In an hour and a half after this, Nimaya is already up and walking around again. So he just has to, like, go to each of them and be like, Kiryu Hikefune, rise. And then she's like, oh, I'm awake now. It's like, so that's basically is, like, physically your bodies are modified and altered when you become a member of the Zero Squad. Your bones are physically turned into Okin. Alright, so your bodies are completely warped and changed when you become a member of the Zero Squad, okay? The big question on everybody's mind at this point, though, is what's up with the Soul King? Because last time we saw him, he was kind of sliced in half, and they tried to fix him with the Mimi Hage, but that didn't work. Yuha just ripped that damn thing off and just absorbed the Soul King, so what's up with that? Well, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because they don't just come out right away and say it, like, this person is the new Soul King. They don't come out right away and say it, but from the way that I interpreted this, Yuha is the new Soul King. Because the way this is talked about, Ichibei is discussing this with Shunsui, and he's like, it's a good thing that Yuha, you know, he didn't destroy the powers of the Soul King, he absorbed them, so they still existed. So when Ichigo sliced him down, those powers just kind of returned to the Soul Palace, and now Yuha is now embedded in the crystal, and now he is going to be the new Soul King. And the reason they bring that up is because Shunsui was kind of relieved that Ichigo did not become the new one. Because that was their plan kind of the whole time, and you could kind of, that was something you could kind of feel in the context of the manga, that if the Soul King is killed, Ichigo might have to be the one to take his place. And if that's the situation, then Ichigo would no longer really be Ichigo. Because as we find out, the Reo, we always had that question of, like, who was the Reo? Who was that dude with no arms and no legs that was inside of the crystal that was like, who was that dude? It doesn't really matter who it was. Because what really matters is the existence of the Reo, regardless of who the Reo is. It's just as long as that power, that visage of the Soul King exists, that's what matters. Because it's sort of like the keystone to everything kind of being the way it is. We find out more about the Soul King much later on in the Can't Fear Your Own World novel, as I've read about this in the summaries, so I've seen what happens later. I've seen the future. But essentially, the Soul Society traffics in a lot of souls, like, you know, transferring places, you know, reincarnating into the world of living and then dying and doing the Konso and coming in. So there's a lot of souls coming in and out, which makes it very unstable. So one of the jobs of the Reo is to kind of like maintain that order and also maintain the balance of all three of the worlds, because we saw what happened when the Soul King was about to be killed. This massive earthquake started in all dimensions. Huecamundo, Dongai, Soul Society, and the living world all were about to be, you know, destroyed at once with this earthquake. earthquake, and then, you know, they used the Mimihage to kind of stabilize everything, but then Yuha became the Soul King with his power, and then he was cut down by Ichigo. So yeah, I'm implying that Yuha is the new Soul King, but don't think of that like, oh, he's evil, he will take over. No, it's like, you lose all sense of individuality, you lose all sense of self, you're literally just an object, kind of. More of an object than an actual thinking, sentient person. You're just kind of stuck in this place with this godly power and just kind of maintaining equilibrium of everything. That's what the Soul King is, okay? That's at least what I got the impression from that. And yeah, Shunsui's like, yeah, if Ichigo would have had to become the Soul King, well, he would have had to become the Soul King. I mean, they like Ichigo. They don't like Ichibei and Shunsui, they like the dude. They didn't want that to happen, but existence needs a Soul King. You need to have a Soul King. So it's like, Ichigo is a prime vessel. He would have worked really well. They're just really kind of relieved, like, oh, well, we're good that didn't happen. That would have really sucked, right? So they're relieved about that, so that's good. Grimmjow, Neliel, and Haribel all burst in at this point. Grimmjow breaks down a wall, and he's like, get out of my way! Freaking, we're still enemies in the damn Soul Palace behind enemy territory. You get off of me. All like the servants of the Soul Kings and everybody are wandering around and they're freaking out. Neliel is there carrying Haribel kind of on her shoulder, and Haribel was rescued from Yuha's dungeons or whatever he had when they rebuilt the Varvelt. You know, the dungeons were also moved from the Silburn, and then they found Haribel and she's still conscious, right? And Ichibei even asks Haribel and the other Hollows. Well, at first he reassures them. He's like, oh, we're not going to hurt you. Don't worry about it. In fact, honestly, like, I will make sure that you have fair passage back to Hueco Mundo, and I would just ask that you stay there to maintain the balance of everything. Because he even mentions, like, honestly, like, even if we were to kill you guys now, like if they were just to kill Grimmjow, Neliel, and Haribel all at once, Ichibei mentions that because of how strong you guys are as Hollows, that would really throw the balance of everything out of whack if 3, like, Fasto Lorde level Hollows are just killed immediately. You know, I don't think they mentioned directly that Grimmjow is Vasto Lorde, but they're mentioning, like, he's on the level at that point, you know, and Haribel and Neliel also are. So they're like, yeah, if we killed you right now, that would, like, be way too many powerful souls moving around. So he's like, yeah, you know what? Honestly, I will give you safe passage back to Hueco Mundo, head back and just stay there, and everything will be good, right? And he even kind of thanks them for everything about what they did and stuff like that. So yeah, Neliel and everybody, they're still alive. Grimmjow's still alive. They're still good. Haribel has a moment where she looks over at the Soul King, and she's just kind of like, she doesn't really say, like, I hate it, or, ooh, it's evil, or whatever. She just kind of looks at it, and she's just kind of like, I know now why Aizen wanted this thing dead. It's like, just the appearance, just the presence of the thing is kind of uneasy for Hollows to even kind of comprehend. So they're just kind of like, we should get out of here. You know, it's a weird place to be in. It's a very metaphysical kind of different reality. That's what makes up the Soul Palace, right? So yeah, that's pretty much the first prologue. We have an ending scene here, where we cut over to the Phoenix Palace, the Houden, where Nimaiya constructs his Zanpakutos and stuff. And this kind of ends out the first prologue, where one of the most ancient and hidden Zanpakutos, and I should have written down that word here, but I did not, so let me just pull it up here. Iko Miki Doome. Iko Miki Doome, yeah. A really ridiculously powerful Zanpakuto. It was originally sealed in a vault underneath the ocean of the Houden, because remember, when Ichigo's new Tensa Zangetsus were forged, the 2 bladed swords, they had to use up pretty much all the water in the ocean for that smelting process, and it evaporated the entire ocean at once, and that actually left a wide opening to this vault. And while Yuha was doing his nonsense, and while the Zero Squad had been, you know, killed, someone had snuck into the Houden and had beaten down all these really strong Zanpakuto spirits that, you know, Nimaiya had, like his harem that he had, beat down all those strong Zanpakuto spirits, ripped open the vault, and took out this ridiculously powerful Zanpakuto, and then made off with it. And so all this happens like an hour or two after Yuha's defeat. So we're already setting up for the next big thing. The second prologue focuses on the resealing of Aizen. So Aizen, he did his thing. He helped out defend the Soul Society. By the way, the story that everybody knows about in the Seirete is kind of changed a little bit. They don't tell everybody what happened up there. They don't tell everybody the whole story about, like, oh yeah, Ichigo, he fought against Yuha, turned into a hollow. Turns out Yuha killed the Soul King, absorbed his powers, could see the future, alter it as he see fits, and then Ichigo got the crap beat out of him. Then he went down to the Seirete with Renji, and then Aizen worked together, and then they beat down Yuha with a magical silver arrow, and then Ichigo sliced him in half. They don't give them that whole story. They just give the regular soldiers, like, the bare minimum of what they need to know, of kind of like, Yuha was threatening the Soul King, and that we managed to win. Ichigo helped, the captains helped, and we won, and the Zero Squad helped, and we all won. We're all good. That's all you need to know. So only, like, the top level, like, the captains and assistant captains, the top level echelon really know about what went down, like, the whole story, okay? So, Aizen did his part, though, and the arrangement from the very beginning was not like, oh, help us out defeat Yuha, Aizen, and then we'll release you forever. That was never the arrangement. The arrangement was, you're gonna come out and help us out, and then we're gonna put you right back into Muken. So he's being resealed into Muken. He's getting put back in his mighty, indestructible chair! Chair-sama! The only thing that can restrain the mighty Sosuke Aizen. So he's being restrained, and Shunsui's trying to, like, he does the particulars of, like, do you have any last words? I really don't care, but I'm supposed to say that before I lock you up for, like, another 20,000 years or whatever. And Aizen is just like, yeah, he just like, I have nothing to speak to. I have nothing to say to you or anybody else. But of course it's Aizen, so he goes on a monologue eventually, whenever, Shuhei shows up. So Shuhei is still alive. Remember the last time we saw him in the context of the manga was he got shot by Lilia Barrow and just kind of dropped in the middle of the Varvelt, and that was the last time we saw Shuhei. But no, he's still alive. He got punctured through his soul sleep and his soul, what was it, like the soul chain and the soul sleep. Yeah, the Hakusui soul sweep. So he got sliced through that, he got shot, and Orihime was able to heal him physically, but it's still going to take a while for his spiritual pressure to return and all that stuff. But he's still conscious, so he gets out of the hospital and he runs over to freaking Aizen, because this is the first time he's really got a chance to actually speak to Aizen since the whole fake Karakura event. And so he's like, I can't believe, Kaname Tosen, what did you do to him, blah, blah, blah. And so, Aizen has this line where he just looks over at him and he says, he doesn't really speak ill of Kaname. He kind of says, I killed Kaname as of like a mercy to him. Because what would you preferred? If Kaname would have survived, you probably would have just locked him up in a place like you're locking me up. Kaname would have wanted that. I gave him a merciful killing. I ended his life quickly. And, Shuhei takes umbrage of that, of course, but there's really nothing he could do at this point. So they have a back and forth talking about Tosen, and that's going to lead into another part of this manga, the light novel. This is going to be a big part of this Shuhei, so obviously a big part of this is going to be Tosen-centric as well. Tosen is dead, of course, but a lot of the stuff revolves around him. So, him and Shuhei and Aizen have a back and forth, and then Aizen gets put back into Muken. I think also along the way, he says something along the lines of, hey, do you really think that in like 20,000 years or whatever, I'm really going to change, or the Soul Society would even still be here by the time that happens? And Shunsui's like, oh yes, it will, because that's what we're supposed to do. It's our duty as the court guard to make sure we're still around by the time you get released, and hopefully you'll learn your lesson by then. 20,000 years, I don't know. I mean, that's a long time to go, and also, I don't even know if that much time, like, Aizen will really change his ways by then, you know what I mean? But that's the second prologue. So, moving into chapter 1 here, we get introduced to our, we get introduced to a few things, actually. First off, we get a flashback featuring Tosen. And remember, Tosen had a friend that originally had Suzumushi, his Zanpakuto. It was originally her Zanpakuto. He was friends with this girl that became a member of the court guard, and then she was killed by her husband, and Central 46 didn't really do anything to bring the person that killed her to justice or anything. She was killed by her own husband, and her husband was also another member of the court guard. So Kaname is just like, what? Why aren't you doing anything about this, Well, it turns out the person that killed Tosen's friend, by the way, Tosen's friend is named Kakyo, we find out her name, and the person that killed her was Tokinada Tsunayashiro. Suna Yashiro being the last of the four, well, one of the four great noble households. There used to be the five, but the Shiba clan left. So yeah, it's one of the members of this noble household, member of the branch family of this noble household. The first chapter is this really cool scene where Kaname is in the Seirete, and he's trying to like lodge a complaint with the Central 46 about what everything's going on with his friend, how they're not investigating this. And Kaname's blind, of course. So there's a man that comes up to him and kind of like talks to him. He's like, he's about to get beaten down by the guards, and the guy comes up and he's like, hey, guards, calm down, calm down. He's just worried about his friend, you know, all that stuff. So the guards leave Kaname alone, and this unidentified man is just walking around with Kaname discussing CFYOW and her life and her legacy, and what is like, you know, do you think that she would want you to have revenge on her if you ever met the person that killed her? And Kaname thinks about it, and he's like, revenge is a complicated matter, but I guess she would not want me to, you know, I guess she would not want me to take revenge out for her sake, you know? And they have this whole, like, philosophical discussion about everything. Like, you know, the person that killed CFYOW was a member of the aristocracy of the Soul Society, so that's the reason. Even though he was a member of the branch family, he's still kind of up there, so money talks, kind of, and status talks, and that's the reason why he's not really being punished beyond just a slap on the wrist. And it's extremely unjust, I know, but that's just the way it is here. And it's a crazy twist, because I'm reading this chapter, this scene with Kaname talking to this individual for like pages and pages, like, wow, this is some really good writing. And then at the very end, Kaname asks for his name. I'm like, what is your name? So I may etch it. Thank you for talking with me. Thank you for reminiscing about CFYOW. And CFYOW was a member of this guy's squad as well. It's like, so he knew her personally. So Kaname's like, thank you so much for this. What is your name, sir? Tokinada Suna Yashiro. Yep. The person that Kaname was having this philosophical discussion with and reminiscing about his friend that he truly, I don't know if it's really stated that like he loved her like romantically, but truly cared for her as a friend, like a mutual kindred spirit. They both really, you know, viewed the world in a similar way. And the person that Kaname has been having this conversation with the entire time is her ex-husband that killed her. My jaw dropped when I got to that point when I was reading that. I was like, holy shit, really? And he was just kind of like, yeah. And Kaname is just, he can't see, but he's like, what? Like, he's speechless, like, what? And Tokinada is like, I'm glad that you said you weren't going to take revenge for her, because I don't want to have to cut down a random guy from Rukongai. I don't want to have to cut you down. If you would have came up to me and you would have said, oh yes, I think she would have want me to fought on her behalf and pick up her sword and take revenge on her, the one that killed her, then I would have had to cut you down right now. But you don't have to take revenge on me because of her memory. You said it, not me. Okay, guards, kick him out. And so the guards proceed to just beat the crap out of Kaname and just kick him out of Seirete into the Rukongai. And that sets Kaname down his little adventure, his path. This all took place like a few centuries ago, obviously, after the death of CFYOW. So that was a crazy moment in this book. That's probably the highlight so far that I've been reading it, because that was a really cool twist. I like that. Following that up, we cut now into the present, where we get to see Tokinada as he is right now. And by the way, in case you were curious on what Tokinada looked like, he looks like this. So yeah, I wonder if he's going to be the villain for this little outing. I can't tell. I think he's going to be a good guy by the end of this. Who knows? Maybe he is a good guy by the end of this. I don't know how this installment ends, but it's like, you look at this guy and he's just like, man, he looks about as trustworthy as Orochimaru, right? Like, damn, right? So we cut to the present, where he's kind of raised a status a little bit in the, I keep looking down, but I just want to make sure I get the name right. Suna Yashiro, the Suna Yashiro family. But he kind of sort of hires an assassin to come and assassinate all the members of the royal family. Like, the main family gets assassinated, and he called them to get assassinated. And then the assassin tries to kill him, and he's like, actually, I'm the one that hired you to kill me. And he's like, what? And he's like, well, I hired you to kill the main branch of the family. So then Tokinada then kills the assassin, the main family is dead, and he's a member of the branch family, so therefore he just elevates himself to the status of the head of the Yashiro family, and that's going to set up stuff for much later in the story. So we're going to get involved a lot of Soul Society politics here. So it's like, oh yes, an assassin broke in and just assassinated my family. How sad. Anyway, I'm the leader now, so yes. And Tokinada also has an assistant, Hikone. Later on, we find out Hikone is like an artificial soul, like a mod soul, and actually genderless, so using pronouns here is kind of weird. But anyway, Hikone is trying to be, Tokinada is trying to set up Hikone to be the next Soul King. And we'll find out more about that whole thing later. But essentially, yeah, Tokinada, the guy that killed Kaname Tosen's friend Kakyo several hundred years ago, is now the head of the Yashiro family, one of the noble families of the Soul Society. So getting a lot of Soul Society politics involved in this. So that carries us over to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is mainly focusing on Shuhei. Okay, so focusing a lot on Shuhei. Actually, there was one part of this I forgot to bring up earlier. I wanted to read this because this was a really good line too. This is at the end of the second prologue. So after Shuhei has his little conversation with Aizen, we have this little moment here. Shuhei Hisagi was neither a prophet nor omniscient, and so naturally had no way of knowing his future. He wasn't a hero who would go down in history like Ichigo Kurosaki. He did not have the brute strength of Kenpachi Zaraki. He did not have the wisdom of Kisuke Urohara. He did not have the skills of Mayuri Kurotsuchi. He did not have the status of Byakuya Kuchiki. He did not have the talent of Toshiro Hitsugaya. Really doing a great job selling this character, aren't you? He did not have the experience of Genryusai Yamamoto, nor the brilliance of Shunsui Kyoraku, nor the drive of Sajin Komomora, nor the courage of Kensei Muguruma. He was the type who derided himself over drinks by saying, whenever I try to become a captain or stick to being an assistant captain, I can't even list all that I'm lacking. So it's basically setting up like he's just an average dude. He's just an average guy, you know? And he's just, he's mentioned that he's the assistant captain, and people always say, like, Shuhei is a really good assistant captain, and you can either take that one of two ways. You can either take that like, oh, he's really, really good at his position, or he's not good enough to become captain material. Oh, yeah, he's a really good assistant captain, but I think he's kind of lacking when it comes to captain status or elevating higher. So Shuhei, you know, he's kind of like glass half full, glass half empty. He kind of switches back and forth where he's more glass half empty, I guess, where he's like, I'm just an average guy, you know? I don't really have much status. I mean, can I, you know, elevate to greatness or get over my own insecurities and stuff? Can I make this happen? So Chapter 2 focuses more on Shuhei being the editor-in-chief of the Seirei Bulletin, which the 9th Squad leads up. And even after Kensei became the new captain, he didn't really have a whole, you know, he didn't really have a focus on it. So he's just like, you know what, Shuhei, you've been doing this so far already. You just keep doing that, right? So he's basically going on a detective trip, a journey to go around the Seirei and the Rukongai and get as much information as he can about what happened during the war. They call it like the Soul King Protection War is what the official name of it was called. So they're going around talking about everything that's been going on here. He's getting interviews, he's doing all that stuff, getting appointments with people. He has yet to go to the world of the living to talk to Ichigo directly because he felt like, that's might be a lot to talk to Ichigo directly about all this, and you have to get permission to go to the world of living and all that stuff. So he's like, oh, maybe I'll interview Chad or Hime or somebody. But first thing is he goes to interview Kukaku at her place. So he goes to interview Kukaku, and Kukaku basically tells him, well, I don't really know much about it because all I do is just launch the Zero Squad and everybody into the Soul Palace. You should go ask Ganju, because Ganju is actually present. So Shuhei is leaving Kukaku's residence, and that's when we get to the image here of Ginjo and Tsukushima. And where's that image at here? There it is. We get to this image here of Tsukushima and Ginjo hanging out, admiring the, I think it's a Kawasaki Z2. Yeah, Kawasaki Z2 motorcycle, right? And this is where we get backstory on Ginjo. So I'm glad that I didn't get to Ginjo's Ginjo's video yet in the Fullbringer series, but I'm glad that I waited until now, because now we find out a little bit more about Ginjo. So Ganju also arrives, and they can tell Shuhei is not really on, you know, good standings with the Fullbringers, because the Fullbringers, you know, Ginjo used to be a substitute Shinigami, but then he sliced down some of the Shinigami himself, and then he defected, and he messed with Ichigo's past and everything. So Shuhei's kind of like, shouldn't you be in hell? You know, you're kind of a bad person. You know, why are you up here? Are you even our ally? And Ginjo and Tsukushima are just kind of like, whatever, we're here. And, Giriko's there, too. Giriko Kutsuzawa, the, time tells no Laizu. He's also there as well. We didn't really get to see him in the last arc either. But they did help Ichigo out. They went up to the Soul Palace and helped out Ichigo. Tsukushima fixed his sword and everything, so they know stuff about the war. So Ganju shows up, and he's kind of like, hey, no fighting, guys. Come on, let's go get some drinks. Let's go. So they head into Kukaku's place, and Ganju, Shuhei, Tsukushima, Ginjo, and Kukaku, they're all in there, they're all drinking sake, getting kind of toasty, and all talking about stuff. And we find out about what's going on with Ginjo's past, because the way that Shuhei talks about it, he's like, man, if you were just upset that, Uketake was watching you, like spying on you with the past, why didn't you just talk to Uketake about it? And Ginjo's like, yeah, why didn't I just talk to him about it? Yeah, good idea. I never thought of that. Glug, glug. So he's like, well, what's your problem here? What happened? And he's like, he's still a little bit ambiguous about it. We don't know the full story. But from what we understand, Ginjo, when he was a substitute Shinigami, had friends that were Fullbringers, and apparently Uketake sent some Shinigami into the world of the living and slaughtered his friends. That's the thing that led Ginjo to defect. That was the thing that like had him throw down his past and is just like, I'm done being a substitute Shinigami, and he defected and he created execution with all the other Fullbringers in Tsukushima, and he met him in the world of living. That's kind of what we're going with here. So it's more than just Uketake was spying on me. It's more than that. It's apparently Uketake sent some like a hit squad to wipe out my friends. And Ginjo has this deep hatred for Uketake, and he even mentions in the chapter, he's like, man, if me and Uketake ever met, it would be like one-on-one single combat, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, because I would just go at him. But he's dead now, so not really much I can do there. I guess bygones are bygones, I suppose, but he's dead, so what am I going to do? But yeah, that's the reason I didn't just go up to him and talk about it, because apparently, my friends died because of him, and I never found out why, really. So that's all we find out so far. We'll probably find out more about it in the story as we go about it, but that's what we find out about Ginjo's past. So I'm glad that I read about that, and when I do Ginjo's video for the Fullbringer series, I'll have a little bit more to go on there too. We also find out a little bit more about how Tsukushima's Book of the End works, but nothing crazy. Basically, he can't manipulate the past whatever he sees fit. He has to include himself in there, like adding himself in. So in the fake past that remember when Tsukushima stabbed Ginjo, would do the fake past, to like fool Ichigo and everything during the Fullbringer arc, Tsukushima actually replaced the person or persons that killed Ginjo's friends with himself. So in that fake memory, Tsukushima was the one that slaughtered all of his friends. But in the real, he can't just create a memory out of nothing. So his friends still got slaughtered. It was just either Tsukushima in the fake memory was the one that did it, or like Uketake's like hit squad did it in the other version, right? So that's kind of like what's going on here. So Tsukushima, he's in the corner just reading his book, and he's just kind of like, is it okay for you guys to talk about this? And Shuhei gets summoned. He has to go to the head captain's quarters, so he has to leave prematurely. But he wants to like come back and like talk to them and like figure out the whole story of what's going on here. So he gets on his motorcycle, vroom, vroom, and he heads off to the head captain's quarters where Shunsui's there, as well as with Kensei. And they find out that, hey, there's a new member of the Suna Yashiro family. Would you issue a special edition of the Seirei Bulletin? And he wants it. This Tokinada guy that's ruling over the clan now, he wants a special edition sprinkled all over the Seirei and the Rukon guy, announcing that he is the new he's the new head of the clan. And Kensei and Shuhei kind of think it's a little weird that, like, a head of the clan, I mean, that's news, but it's not, like, that kind of big news for the entirety of the Soul Society to know about. But they're like, yeah, I guess we could issue a special edition for that, I suppose. And Kensei's like, I'll just leave it up to you, Shuhei. And Shuhei's like, okay. So, kind of getting to the murmurings that something kind of major is going on here with this Tokinada dude. So that was Chapter 2, and then Chapter 3, which I think I'm still in the middle of Chapter 3. I haven't finished all of Chapter 3 yet. But Chapter 3 actually picks up with Hanataro Yamada, third seed of the 4th Division. We all love Hanataro. And Hanataro ends up running into his older brother. Remember his brother, Cianosuke Yamada? He was only shown in like that one cover page with the Turn Back the Pendulum. But Cianosuke Yamada used to be the lieutenant of the 4th Division under Unohana. whatever happened to him. Did he die? No, he didn't die, but he was promoted to a weird position where he actually was basically the head medical relief officer for the noble clans. So he literally tends to the aristocracy's like medical needs personally. So that's what happened to Yamada's Hanataro Yamada's older brother Shinosuke Yamada. It's actually a very interesting relationship that the two have. Because the way that Hanataro talks to him, Hanataro is a very meek, very shy individual, doesn't really speak negatively about anybody. He's just way too shy for that. But the way he talks to his brother is interesting. So his brother shows up and he's like, oh, hey, Hanataro, how you doing? And they have a little bit of back and forth. And this is what Hanataro says to his brother. He says, you certainly are spiteful and no one's a fan of your personality, but there are good things about you too if people look for them, I think. We can't let anyone who has it out for someone join the fourth company to begin with. So Hanataro kind of growing some balls there to his older brother. He's kind of like, yeah, you're kind of a spiteful individual and no one really likes you, but I guess there's good qualities about you. That's kind of like a passive-aggressive burn on his older brother there. I'm like, damn, Hanataro, right? But anyway, his brother showed up at the 4th Division barracks to meet with Hanataro, and he's like, hey, I think it's probably a good idea if you leave the court guard squads for a little bit of a vacation, or you can come with me to the relief unit of the aristocracy of the noble clans, because stuff is, I think, going to go down here in the court guard, and it's probably best for you to be away when that happens. And Yamada, I don't think he takes it up. He's like, well, I have to stay here. I'm the 3rd seat and everything. I have to stay here for the the division and everything. But he's like, yeah, he says, yeah, if you don't want to get dragged into the mess, you should probably distance yourself from positions of responsibility for a while and keep your eyes closed and your ears and eyes closed. So basically, Shinosuke kind of shows up. He's like, hey, shit's gonna go down, little bro. Should probably get out while you can. Bye. He just leaves, and he's like, and he has the inside scoop because he's a member. He's kind of around the noble clans all the time. So yeah, the pieces are starting to fall together. I think you're starting to figure out what's going on here. The last part that I've read up to is 2 little parts here. One takes place in Karakura Town, where we get introduced again to Yuki Ryunosuke. If you don't remember who he is, I don't blame you. He is the shrimpy, even more of a wimp than Hanataro Shinigami that showed up at the very beginning of the 1,000-Year Blood War Arc, the kid with the dots on his head. He shows up, and also Shino shows up. Shino, by the way, is Shino Madarame, and I don't think we found out what her last name was in the actual canon of the manga. We might have. She is related to Ikaku in some way, and she also has a polearm Zanpakuto. So that's something I'm sure a lot of fans were just dying to find out. Anyway, they're the new Shinigami in charge of patrolling Karakura Town. So you have Keigo and Mizuro that are being chased by a hollow, a giant crab hollow. Not mechanical, though, unfortunately. So Ryunosuke is running away from it. He's like, oh my god, I'm scared of a hollow, guys. And it's actually left up to Mizuro and Keigo to defend against the hollow. And Ichigo's still not present, so I don't know what's up with him. But the crazy thing is, Mizuro has actually been frequenting the Uehara shop, and Uehara and everybody there in Tessai have actually been selling Mizuro, like, anti-hollow defensive equipment and, like, gadgets and things. So he takes out this thing called, I think it's the Zeta Bomb or something, the Zeta Ball. He takes out this big ball that has a skull on it and just, get back, Keigo! It just chucks it at the hollow. It just shocks the hollow, and then Shino comes out of nowhere, releases her Zanpakuto, and kills it. And, like, holy crap, so Uehara is, like, supplying, like, anti-hollow defensive armaments to, like, all the kids of Karakura Town. I love that, right? That's crazy. So anyway, yeah, we have that going on, but the main focus of that little part is as they're all walking home, Yuki, Ryunosuke, Shino Madarame, Keigo, and Mizuro, they're all walking home, and there's this campaign van just kind of going down the street, and it's kind of like doing, like, it's like a new religious order, or like a cult that's doing, like, a public speech for everybody. And they're talking about how, yeah, ever since that earthquake happened after the Soul King, they know about the Soul King, but ever since everything happened in the Soul King's palace and the earthquake started, the earthquake happened all over the world with no geographical explanation, no plate tectonic explanation or anything like that. All over the world at once, there was just this ongoing rumbling earthquake for like several hours. It didn't cause a lot of damage, but if that happened in our world, People would be freaked out about that. There's no explanation for it. It doesn't make any sense for the plate tectonics or anything. It's just the entire world was just shaking at once. That would cause some religious cults to pop up. That would cause some people to be like, the end is nigh! You know, that would definitely cause that. So that makes perfect sense in this case. So this organization comes out, this new cult, and they start doing this like this speech and everything like that. And they're like, hold on, let me get the speech here. They were unsatisfied remaining in the present, yet humanity was left with no desire to return to the past. Those seeking a spiritual guide broke away to form a new world. And they're like, okay, that's just a lot of like cult speak or whatever. And they're like, well, what's the name of this new cult, this new religion that's happening? What's the name of this? And we don't find out there, but we find out in the following, and this is actually where I left off. We cut over to Yukio's company. Yukio, Hans Warnaburner, the German guy, that, you know, Fullbringer, he has his own company now, yeah. He, remember, he stole all the money from his father and his parents, and then they actually died, and he, at age like 14, 15, he takes over this company, and he's expanding it, right? And so he has a lot of money, and so there's someone there, a woman that came in that Yukio invited, and he wanted to have a talk with her, and she is one of the leaders of this new organization. She's one of the leaders of this religious organization, and she takes out her card and she leaves it on Yukio's table because she wants like some funding from him. It's like, oh, Yukio, you should, you know, President Warnaburner, you should help us with this, our new endeavor here. And the name of the religion, and there's a picture of both of them. There's Yukio in the upper right there, and I thought this was Toshiro Hitsugaya and Yumachika at first, but you see Yukio there, and then this woman whose name is Ora Michibane, maybe? And she is an execution representative. And that's actually where I left off so far. It's about halfway through the book. So, basically, some other organization, unrelated to Yukio, is using the name Execution as this new religious cult that's popping up all over the world of the living, which is probably going to tie back to the Soul Society stuff in some way. I don't think this is going to be unrelated. And Yukio's like, what the hell is this? You know this was copyrighted, right? You know, this is like trademarked, and you're using our name, so what's going on here? So that's where I left off on the Can't Fear Your Own World novel. After I'm done reading it, I'll probably do another video talking about the remaining half of this book, and the next part doesn't come out until November, so we got some time left. But, yeah, let me know so far. I mean, I don't really mind spoilers for myself, because I kind of know where this is going, basically, you know, from the spoilers, from the, you know, the summaries I've read and everything. But what is your favorite part of the book? And have you read it? Have you not read it? You know, and just let me know in the comments below. Yeah, so thanks for watching, everybody. It's kind of awesome that we finally have a chance to talk about this, right? So pick up your copy. Tekking101 signing out. Sorry, Barry.